Disclaimer: the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. While we discuss topics related to mental health advice, life wisdom, and alike, the opinions expressed are personal views of the hosts and do not constitute professional, legal, or medical advice. We make no representations or warranties about the accuracy or completeness of the information discussed. Any action you take based on the information in this podcast is strictly at your own risk, and we are not liable for any losses or damages in connection with its use. Additionally, this podcast may contain discussions around addictions, substances, which are intended for adult audiences. We do not endorse any illegal activities. Please consult your local laws before engaging in any actions related to this content. By listening to this podcast, you agree that you are over the age of 18 or the age of majority in your jurisdiction and understand the terms of this disclaimer.
Welcome to the Balancing Forces podcast, where two opposites collide in the best way possible. One brings the fire,
the other keeps it chill.
But together we share life's lessons, hard-earned wisdom,
advice you can actually use.
Whether you need a fresh perspective or just a laugh, we're here to elevate your mind. So buckle up, because things are about to get real and
really funny.
Are you ready to level up your astrology game? Join the Alchemist Laboratory by Solar Systems. For just $33 a month, you get access to 10+ courses, a resource library, manifestation secrets, live Q&As, and so much more. Over $2,300 in value. Transform your understanding of astrology and unlock hidden knowledge. Sign up now through the school app and follow Solar Systems on TikTok and Instagram.
Chapter 36. Children love parents more than parents love children. I spend a lot of time outside of the office thinking about and meditating on the lives and stories of my clients. I see their micro patterns, I feel the pain of their hardships, and in the nicest treat for me, I get to be taught by their lives and decisions about human nature. New theories coalesce in me. Over time, new ways to attack problems, new meta patterns become visible, new insights come that might help future clients, friends, or even my own life. In that vein, over the years, I've seen any number of unusual juxtapositions, two seemingly unrelated concepts come together to inform and deepen the other, one often turning the other on its head. Here are two unusual concepts or sets of questions I've wrestled with over the decades that relate to our discussion. Concept 1. One of the distinct phenomena I have seen over the years is the strong willingness of children and adult children to endure far more at the hands of a parent than a parent would ever endure at the hands of a child, even when that child becomes an adult. I have come to see that there is an odd thing that exists in relationships between parents and children. A child's loving actions towards a parent are unconditional, even when they shouldn't be, and a parent's actions towards a child are conditional, even when they shouldn't be. It's as if the children love the parents more than the parents love the children. I regularly hear parents proclaim how much their children are the center of their world and the most important thing in their lives, but then go on in the child's teens and adult years to engage in actions that can only be characterized as far less than loving, not the least of which is subtle or overt manipulation of the child to meet the parent's needs and wants. Teen and young adult children will sometimes engage in manipulation in return, but I am of the belief that this is conditioned behavior, already taught and given acceptability by the parents. I have simply seen incredible amounts of damage done to the vast majority of adult children I work with by the parents who claim to love them. The parent easily makes her feelings of love for the child a justification for doing anything she wants to the child at any time, where those actions are clearly not loving and or definitely conditional. The parent engages in actions the child would never engage in return. And I'm not even talking about as something as grievous as blatant abuse. I'm talking about that giant gray area where actions can be somewhat defended as loving, but really aren't. Justifiable actions of conditional love for the child easily slip into manipulation of the child. The parent cannot distinguish, or chooses not to distinguish, between the child's best interest from the parent's wants, and those are two very different things. And if actions speak louder than words, is it not reasonable to assume that the parent do not love the children? Or, more accurately, Is it not reasonable to assume that parents do not love children as much as children love parents? Because of the initial power imbalance in the parent child relationship, with the parent holding all the power and the newborn none, and the dependency, love, and trust that relationship naturally engenders, a child generally far more loves the parent, particularly when it comes to actions, than a parent does a child. Also, because of that same trust, love, and admiration, a child is far more inclined to be vulnerable to the parent than the parent will most ever be to the child. Until the natural decline of age and life energy happens, when the roles of dependency often invert. Repeatedly and ongoingly, a child will submit, even well into adulthood, to the whims, fancies, expectations, and power of the parent, very often to the significant detriment of the adult child. And if you're reading this book and have a broken or crud filled love cup, I can all but guarantee this is part of the problem you're suffering from. There is a gross imbalance of the equation between you and your living or dead parents. Guaranteed. It ain't unconditional both ways, no matter what is being said to the contrary. The downside of this is that, even into adulthood, a child will feel guilty for crossing the parent or considering crossing the parent, afraid to stand up to the power of the parent, fearful of disappointing the parent, fearful of losing the parent's love and support, afraid of hurting the parent's feelings, even when the parent might have engaged in some seriously hurtful things towards the child in the past or even present years. It's not her place to demand that her voice be heard by the parent, even in adulthood. Most unwillingly to speak the truth of the past or speak of the child's needs to distance him or herself from the parent, or at least the parent's influence. So, an adult child will keep silent, keep his or her truth in, and refrain from standing up to the parent, even the parent of the childhood that still lives strong in his own head. So powerful is the influence, even still, and so great is the love, even if the love is buried deep, that a child will hate and fear few things in life more than the mere thought of truly standing up to the parent. Or, more accurately, the adult child will hate and fear few things more than the mere thought of simply standing up and not backing down, whether the parent actually hears or not. The wobbly need fear is of standing up finally in life and not sitting or backing down. Yet, until you shift in your core beliefs to the notion that your voice, feelings, and truth matter more than the voice, feelings, and truth of your parents, you're screwed. You will never be fully happy. Happiness naturally demands communion with your own voice, giving it the respect and guiding presence in your life that you formerly gave to the voice of your parents. That doesn't mean you have to be mean to your parents, cut them out completely of your life, or even stand up to them in person at all. Or maybe it does, depending on what feels right in you. What it does mean is that there must absolutely be a shift within you to you actually mattering enough to squeeze their voice out of your life, banished from your head forever, or at least radically cut back. There must also be a shift from love equals obedience to it is okay and good to love someone and not do what they say. This last shift is a radical one, particularly if the family and parents do not define love that way. If love is seen as obedience, then the no rising up in the adult child must be stronger and louder. For saying no is when life truly begins, when the showing of loving actions becomes deliberate and appropriate to a situation. That is when you finally begin to claim ownership of your life. Slowly but surely, life changes, happiness comes, and the love cup begins to fill. Concept 2. Years ago, I found myself wrestling with the very common notion of unconditional love as the ideal in relationships and parenting. I came to believe that in discussing unconditional love, it's very important to separate two things: feelings of unconditional love, and unconditional actions of love. For I have seen so many lives ruined for decades because someone kept giving loving actions to a person who repeatedly over time gave them quite unloving actions in return. Whether they felt obligated, felt strong feelings of love, or felt afraid to do otherwise, they gave at great personal price to an ungracious receiver. It left me thinking, is unconditional love the ideal? When my children played together in their younger years, if my daughter was mean to or hit my son, almost never happened. Her mother or I would send her to her room for a time out, accompanied by brief remarks. We don't hit in this house, young lady. If you are upset with your brother, you need to talk it out with him. My daughter's unloving actions were not rewarded with flowers, cotton candy, and pink bows, nor were they given a generally neutral response or non response. She had engaged in negative action and received negative action from her parents, appropriate to her age. Called out but not demeaned, she felt what she had done wrong. Her contrition was apparent. Now, through it all, my feelings of love for my daughter were unwavering. I loved and love her immensely. But warm feelings do not translate into soft, lovey dovey actions in such a moment. No, they are tempered by metered, deliberate actions that are in the best interest of the family, her brother, and her own future development. If my son were to, later in life, go to jail for hurting another person, hypothetically speaking, because it never happened, he's a very kind soul, I would not show up to visit him in jail with a cake and warm and loving words. My showing actions of love to my son is conditional upon his being a decent human being. There's no doubt I have massive feelings of love for my son, no matter what he does, but he wouldn't get handfuls of cash and big warm hugs. Or in a relationship, if someone is repetitively treating me poorly, such that there is a clear and obvious pattern, I do not reward that behavior with loving action. I respond to the negative actions with clear, strong boundaries and firm words. My feelings of love are still there, but the loving actions are radically curtailed. Without the ability to differentiate between and separate loving feelings and loving actions, we allow people to run all over each other and ourselves. Unconditional feelings of love are great. Actions of love that are not conditional are a form of slow suicide. One last note. This leaves one question largely unanswered and, in fact, unasked. I've discussed the notion of unconditional love from parent to child, but how does this unconditional love look flowing from a child to parent? You might be able to guess the answer based on everything that has led up to this point in the book. However, let me be clear. In the first 25 to 35 years of the child's life, it is not the child's responsibility to love the parent. A child will naturally pour love onto a parent or anyone else unless the child has been stuffed with fears, anxieties, and expectations to meet the parent's needs. And make no mistake, a child does need to be taught basic standards of respect, decorum, manners, and the like. But it is a giant step from teaching a child how to channel their love to instilling in a child an expectation that they must be a love source for a parent. In fact, this is one area where deliberateness is critical. The child at any age prior to the decline of the parent must be taught explicitly that the parent is stronger than the child and strong enough to take care of herself, which therefore means the child is in no way responsible for showing love or tending to the needs of the parent. What a child, teen, or 20 to 30 something shows in love to the parent is strictly optional, again, assuming standards of basic respect and kindness are observed. See, the simple fact of the matter is that a child feels incredibly overwhelming love and admiration for a parent, and it is far too easy for a giant feeling of love to spill into loving actions of responsibility for the parent. That is misplaced love that too easily metastasizes into a child's pouring love into the adult love cup rather than always the opposite. I was close to a young woman who specifically stated that she wanted to have kids so that I'll always have someone who loves me. This is pretty much the exact wrong mentality by which to go into parenting, for it implies that the children or child is being created to meet the needs of the parent who feels inadequate, i.e., short on love, and unable to get her own love needs met by appropriate adult means. This is the parent who will forever be siphoning love from the child's love cup, rather than forever making it her responsibility to, in fact, fill the child's or adult child's love cup. Recipe for total disaster. For it means that that child, rather than filling with love poured from the parent and other adults, will be constantly feeling drained of love, read depression and anxiety, not to mention just plain tired, which leads to all manners of self destroying behaviors to try to frantically get that cup filled and to feel alive at all. Behaviors that only get more intense and more hidden, yet more difficult to keep under wraps with age. Really, the point of this entire book is children do not exist for parents, parents exist for children. Nothing screws up cement and love cups like that equation becoming inverted, and it requires immense discipline on the part of a parent to not steal loving words and physical affection from a young child to get the parent's own cup filled. It requires a deliberate, disciplined parent to not get his or her own pride fix met through the actions and achievements of a teen or 20 something. It demands both self awareness and great forbearance for the parent of the 20 to 30 something to not vicariously live the parent's own broken dreams and missed opportunities through the young, fresh, and easily malleable life of a still tethered adult child, particularly as the parent sees his own vigor and opportunities blowing away. And at the last breath, it is a profound act of letting go to place no burden or expectation to fulfill a promise in the lap of a child. So remember, we're giving away this signed autograph copy of There's a Hole in My Love Cup. To enter, just like, subscribe, and comment. Also, sign up for our Beacons link to get into the giveaway. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay amazing, stay awesome, and remember always to keep it real.